Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, addicts of all ages, welcome to Canadian Sober, eh? I'm your host and resident alcoholic, Dougie Fresh. So glad you're with us. Determination, but finding yourself. How does one person find themselves? Well, depends on what you're talking about. When you're talking about addiction or recovery, one person can find themselves in multiple ways. My next guest had to go on a journey to find herself, and that guest is Deb. How you doing today, Deb?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
I'm so grateful you're here today. Thank you for being here. Can you tell the world a little bit about Deb that maybe they don't know?
Okay, so I'm sharing my experience, strength, and hope. I'll start with my childhood. I had an amazing childhood. I had great parents, very loving. We were always doing things and going away up to a cottage, and it was great. My parents didn't drink, so it didn't come from them. My parents split when I was about 10, but still very supportive, very loving. So it was never anything to do with family relations that had me end up drinking too much. Normal teenage happenings where parties would happen and you got introduced to alcohol, things like that. And I remember my first drunk, as you'd say. I must have been about 14, and my parents, my friend's parents were from Newfoundland, and they liked to party. So they were offering us up wine all night, and didn't like that feeling, that's for sure. And I tell you, my friend's mother made me the best cup of tea ever. I suffered from that for a couple of days and thought never again. So for a long time, I would always, at parties, only have a little bit. Fast forward to later in life, after high school, I ended up traveling around Australia, backpacking with a friend, and ended up moving there. And I don't know if you know anything about Australia, but they like to drink. They do like to drink. So that was just, a playground. When I was over there, it was, I was in the banking world and, management, and we go up for our meetings on Friday afternoon, and I'd have my, they'd have my drink ready for me at the table when I got up there. So it was encouraging us when I was over there. It was a lot of fun, I gotta say that. But when I moved back to Canada, that all settled down. That was, wasn't that way over here. So I didn't find myself drinking quite as much. So some people have said that they know from their first drink that they're an alcoholic. I didn't know. I thought I just had the normal drinking as teenagers in your, young adult life and in your 20s and things like that. Met somebody, ended up having some kids, 2 kids, and I, no problem stopping to drink because I was only really drinking socially, and stopped when I wanted to have children. No problem there. And it was when I was at the end of my pregnancy with my second child that my world just completely crumbled. I found out some things, and for me, it was like my heart had stopped. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't like all the emotions I had. So after I'd had my son and it was safe for me to drink, that's what I did. Just so I didn't have to deal with all the feelings and things like that. Now, was that the reason why I ended up drinking too much? It could be, I don't know. It's a progressive disease. And you get into your habits of drinking and stuff like that. Everyone has a habit of drinking coffee in the morning. Well, mine ended up being, I'll have a glass of wine in the afternoon, and then I just didn't stop at that one glass. I would start out very slowly, but by the end of the night, it was like drinking water. But since I was home with kids, I wasn't out driving, so I always thought it was okay. And I didn't really have a problem, because when I went out, I was safe and things like that. And when you think of an alcoholic, you think of, somebody who's, I think you've said it before, bottle in a brown bag under a bridge, right? No, you're alcoholic. It could be your next door neighbor. It could be the teacher at school. It could be the pilot that's flying the plane. So I just didn't understand what an alcoholic was. And, you know, my friends drank like I did, so they're not alcoholics. How could I be one? But like I said, it's a progressive, and I got worse, where I wouldn't go a day without drinking. And it could have been like 2 drinks, it could have been 6 drinks a day, you know, but I had a drink every day. And life was just kind of falling apart around me, and my moral compass took a vacation at one point. And I think I hit my rock bottom then. And it was, I work with a therapist now, and she actually brought up that with me the last time I talked to her, because I told her I was coming on the show, and she kind of, well, what's your rock bottom? Let's, you know, and just the way she had worded it around that question, she brought me right to, I think this is when my rock bottom was. And, you know, I was in a place I didn't want to be. I didn't like how my life was. Like, and I didn't know who I was anymore. And it was scary. But that didn't take me to sobriety yet. I had to go through a lot more before I walked into a room for help. I dealt with everything by drinking. So, but I found my compass, my moral compass again. It was going in the right direction, and I was concentrating more on me and my kids. You know, let's make this a better life. However, I was still drinking. And then, of course, COVID hits and you're locked down. So what did most people do? Eat and drink when they were stuck at home. Well, you know, you can only go outside and play baseball and stuff with the kids so much. So that's what I did. You know, that was my couple years of excuse to keep drinking. But then I did. I said, you know, I can't live like this. I'm not a good role model for my kids. I just wasn't liking who I was anymore. So I found a program. I actually got some assistance at first, and I remember the last time I drank, it was, I swear I must have measured, I don't know, I didn't, but I ended my Sunday night with no booze in the house. Mind you, if there was some booze in the house, but I didn't drink that stuff, so it didn't bother me. Mine was the white wine. I had to have my white wine. And I made sure there was none. Not a drop left that night. Monday morning, I woke up and said, I am going to kick this in the butt, and I'm going to be in control of my life again. It always bothered me when I heard those people, oh, yes, you know, it was just over a couple weeks, and I was feeling good. By 3 months, my obsession had left, and I used to sit there and think, how? You know, and I'm not going to say it was smooth. My first year was not smooth. They said you'd sleep better, you know, you'd feel better, and you'd have more energy, and I'd be wandering the house at 3 in the morning because I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
I could not sleep. I was like opposite of everything they said, and I just wouldn't give in. I was very stubborn and going, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I had a lot of days where I'd be on the phone with my tribe, is what I like to call them. I meet with a bunch of ladies each week to help each other through, because it's a we kind of program that I'm in. It's hard to do on your own. So I would be texting, you know, like, I'm struggling, really wanting to drink, this happened, I don't know how to deal with it. And you know, if that person wasn't available, this person was, and they would talk me through. It didn't matter what they were doing, you know, they were there, which was amazing. And that's what helped me through the tough times. You know, and fast forward, I'm coming up to my 2 years. The second year's flown by. And what I've noticed with my recovery is service. With a lot of people's recovery is doing service. And when I say service, I mean coming on, speaking about what I went through. I have 2 ladies I'm helping. There is no one thing fixes all, or do this and, you know, the obsession of drinking will go away. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own journeys. So I just, have two close friends that I will walk with during their journey, and tell them what I went through, what helped me to not go and pick up that first drink. Lovely ladies, and they're doing amazing. And like I said, everyone's different. I also have another friend who struggled, and she only had 2 drinks a night. And as an alcoholic brain, I'm like, that's fine. What's wrong with 2 drinks a night, But that's not what was her, right? So, like I said earlier, anybody can be an alcoholic, and like for this lady, 2 drinks was her, like that's too much.
Yeah.
Whereas mine, I would have 6 drinks a night, and that was kind of like too much. But she's doing wonderful, and we all have slips sometimes, and life still happens. And because you get sober doesn't mean that, everything's rainbows and unicorns. And it's, life still happens, and you go through difficult times, but you learn how to deal with it better. Whereas before, if something happened, I'd got to have a drink, and that would just relax me, right? But now I find other ways of doing that instead of going for a drink, and thankfully it's not sugar, because that's the other bad one to get wrapped up into. When you've been drinking, people a lot of times will go to sugar. So, yeah, and life is good now.
Yeah.
It took me a bit longer than some, and it, might have been shorter for other people, but life is good. I found who I am. I found myself again, and I am myself again. I'm doing what I like, and I'm constantly present for my kids. When we're up at my dad's cottage, my son loves to, let's do this, do this, do this. He has 1 speed. And before it would be a little, I just want to sit here and, drink my wine. Now it's like, okay, let's go. So we're kayaking, we're taking, going out to the driving range, we're going on hikes, so it's wonderful. I'm doing all this again, and loving it.
That's amazing. You have a very inspiring story, I think, in the sense, because you recognized in yourself that you had an issue. One word as you were talking came to my mind, and sharing your story with us, was the word powerful. Taking control back,
Yes.
And how liberating does it feel for you to recognize that, but then say, like, I need to change?
It was amazing. It's like I had these little awakenings, as they like to say, and you're supposed to find a higher power. My higher power I call God. And there'd be messages that I receive in my, my sober moments, because I wasn't one that had to get up in the morning and have a drink. So most mornings up until probably about 2, I was sober. So that's when the awakenings or the light would shine in, that, I don't know who I am anymore. And then that's when, it gave me, like, you got to do something. This is not who you are. This is not the life you wanted. So yes.
But I think like you just brought up a good point that I want to touch on, and it's a misconception, I think, that I see in the rooms all the time, and it's the God part.
Yes.
And so many people are afraid to even come into the rooms because of that misconception.
Yes.
And I can tell you folks, if you're listening at home, whatever you're doing, eating supper, that if you're struggling with addiction and you go to the room that probably everybody knows which room I'm talking about, you don't have to believe in anything. You can just go to the rooms, and nobody's going to force you to do what you don't want to do. And
right.
it all comes, like, it took me 3.5 years to find my higher power.
Okay.
And I didn't, I believed, and they were telling me I had to believe in something greater than myself, but like I was believing in nature, and I was believing in this and that, and just kind of choosing stuff as I went along. But I had a higher power moment 3.5 years into the program, was it easy for you to choose like a higher power?
It was. I'd always believed in God, and it was something that when they said a higher power, you have to believe. And at first, when I went into the rooms, because I had lost my mom 2 years ago, I was using my mom as my higher power at first, and then realized, that she's there, she's supportive, stuff like that, but I need to believe in, something even greater, and that's what I picked. And it isn't a religious, it's not a religious program, it's spiritual. You don't have to, go to church and do that. I do now. I didn't before, but I have a church I go to now that I just absolutely love. And it's a church that is for non-churchy people. So it's amazing, I go and have fun there.
Yeah.
And you don't usually hear that about church. So, but so it wasn't too hard for me, and it was one of those I just grasped a hold of. If this is what's going to help me get through this or deal with, then I'm going to grab a hold of that. Mm-hmm. I've heard a lot of other people say that they've used the actual group that they're in as their higher power. So they're leaning on and grasping a hold of those people in there for the support that they need to get through. Because it's hard to do this on your own.
Yeah, so, you can't do it on your own, in my opinion. I had to have so many people help me. Excuse me. And one thing you talked about is that you see a therapist.
I do.
And so so speak to the person sitting at home, sometimes some of us need extra help.
Yes, especially nowadays, mental health seems to be a bigger and bigger problem. And the person that was helping me through my journey suggested, maybe go and talk to somebody else to deal with life problems, whereas where I'm at, I'm dealing with alcohol problems. And how do I deal with this when I can't grab a drink? She'll help with the rest of your life and stuff like that. And she has been incredible, and has gotten to the root of some problems that I had and traumas I didn't realize I was carrying. And in today's society, it seems like mental health is a real problem.
Yeah.
And people aren't taking it as seriously as I think they should. And we have the homeless. This seems like an epidemic happening in Barrie at the moment, and the root cause of it is mental health and addiction, and these people might not have the access for the help that they need. And like I said, anybody can be an alcoholic, and I hadn't lost my house, I hadn't lost my family, and things like that, but the word we always use is yet. If I had kept on my path, I could be one of those ones that were sitting on the street, and I needing help, but I don't know where to go to get it.
Absolutely.
Kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. So. And I think one thing I've noticed in the past, I've been sober for a little over 8 years, and I think one thing I've noticed in the 8 years is the increase of women in recovery rooms. So when you came into the recovery rooms and you saw that there was all these women there, it had to have been it had to make you feel comfortable that you weren't just surrounded by a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, it was actually the third meeting I'd gone to. That it was a room I went into and it was just women.
Wow.
And I actually had that moment of, I feel like I'm at home, because these women were talking, and that lady's same situation as me.
Yeah.
She was, as we like to call it, a functioning alcoholic. I was still doing everything. I was still getting my lunches together for the kids for school. I was still, picking them up when they needed to be, things like that, but I was still drinking. Right, so I wasn't as present as I should have been, and that lady was talking about it. So that made me feel like, oh, okay, I'm not by myself in this. There is somebody else in my situation too.
Yep.
And then other people have their other stories that they might have hit a lower rock bottom than mine seems to be. But for me, that was a rock bottom that I'd hit at one point, and so. We're all the same in these rooms, which is amazing.
Yeah.
No one is better, no one is less than. So
yeah,
and that fellowship that's around it is amazing and supportive.
Yes.
So
It's amazing. You mentioned doing fun things in recovery, right?
Yeah.
And like, I think that's another misconception.
Yes.
Like when we get sober, we can no longer have fun, right?
Yeah.
Because you always had to be loaded or
Yeah.
high to enjoy the experience. Touch a little bit about that. Like,
Yeah, when I first started coming in and people were laughing, and I used to sit there and think, what are they laughing about? Do you know, and because at the time it's all about me, everything's about me, I'm like, oh, maybe they're laughing at me, you know? No, they're laughing because life's good again. You remember what to enjoy. And I have my moments when I'm up north and, you know, I go kayaking, my son and I will go into the swamp. And I tell you, there's the peace that you feel in there, and all you hear is the nature, you know, around you. And that's when I get in touch with my higher power the best, is when I'm there. It's amazing. And I used to take that for granted and sit on the deck with a glass of wine.
Yeah.
Now I'm out there and experiencing it, you know?
yeah, absolutely. I think I've had more fun in the past,
Yeah.
like probably about like 7 years. The first year was kind of like still kind of trying to find your footing and your ground. But the last 7 years, I've had a blast. And sobriety definitely isn't boring.
No.
But it's a fun question. So guilty pleasures today, because when you quit drinking, right? Like you mentioned it, that you know we can get addicted to other things.
Yeah.
Mine is naps and Perrier, right? So like, what do you have any guilty pleasures today?
Well, I guess, like you said, addiction turns elsewhere, and I went to bubbly, or as my daughter likes to say, bubbly,
Bubbly.
like the commercials. Do you know, I've literally changed one for the other, and I still will put my bubbly in a wine glass. Do you know, so I have that little feeling, because it's all about the glass you're drinking it from, I tell you. That's a bit of a guilty pleasure. I cut sugar out of my diet a year and a half ago as well. So if ever I sneak a little bit of something sweet, that's a guilty pleasure. So
I think sugar added another 30 pounds to my diet. It's just not that great. But you just brought up a great point. I think I would love you to touch on.
Sure.
Is the wine glass, pouring like bubbly in a wine glass.
yeah.
So here's my question to you: to mocktail or not to mocktail?
Do you know, it depends on the person, I think. Because the lady that helped me through my journey, or is helping me through my journey, she's a hard no on that, because she just feels like she'll be triggered. I like to have them, a mocktail, special occasions. Do you know, if a friend's over and it's a Friday night, and you know, we might be doing stuff, sobriety stuff, to help our sobriety, we'll pull out a mocktail or something. Do you know? And
It's become very
like a treat.
popular.
It's very and they're good.
Yeah, I'm kind of like with your sponsor. I'm like a hard
Yeah.
no, and that's just where my sponsor has kind of taught me about it. So we'll leave that. You know, but before we finish today, I want you to touch on something that is near and dear to my heart, and it's become a close conversation in your life in the past like week or so.
Yeah.
You know, during COVID, I had a little fur baby that helped me get through so many tough times, especially during COVID. I had a 9.5-year-old chocolate lab that would sit there, and we'd eat crackers and cheese, and do recovery meetings online. You just lost a fur baby.
I did.
How was that?
That was hard. She was an amazing dog. So I had 2 Rottweilers, and they get a bad rap, I tell you, because this was the sweetest dog ever. She used to come and she'd sit right there and put her paw up on your knee so that you would massage her feet. She loved it, and then her head would just fall into your lap as she's enjoying it. Was amazing with kids, and she was part of the family, you know. She was a fur baby. You know, I have my own 2 kids, and then my 2. And even the other, she was named Bear, and my other Rottweiler is named Moose. He's starting to feel the loss, I think, because he kind of they used to howl together, and he'd start looking around for us. So it's
Yeah.
not just me that was affected.
Well, I think, like you mentioned, they're part of the family.
They are.
Right? They become, glued to you, and
Yeah.
it's been really hard for my wife and I to not have that comfort
Yeah.
there anymore. So, geez, I'm almost getting choked up talking about it. But really quick before we leave, what does Deb do on a daily basis to maintain what you have today?
I pray morning and night. I'll pray when I'm in a difficult situation. I'll pray when I'm in a good situation. But I remember where I was, what I didn't like, and why I did this. That's basically what I do. If I do that every day,
Yeah.
I'll be here.
And who would you say has been your biggest support?
My biggest support, I don't know if I have one. Do you know, my kids are very supportive. My friends have been very supportive. It's been, my dad's been a great supporter. So it's been a great journey.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to what's coming.
I'm so much looking forward to what's coming for you. I see newcomers come into the room, and they're, we touched on it. Life is going to be boring, not going to have any more fun. And I sit there with a smile on my face looking at the newcomer, and I'm thinking to myself, you have no idea.
No.
No idea. And I've been to concerts, I've been to vacations, I've done so many amazing things in recovery without needing drugs or booze to feel any different.
Yes.
And I think that's a great liberating feeling to have.
It is.
Yeah.
And you remember everything that you've done now.
Yeah, instead of having to call somebody the next day and
Or
apologize.
looking back at pictures, right?
Yeah. I want to thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
You've been amazing. Keep doing amazing things.
Thank you.
And your story definitely is going to help somebody.
I hope so.
Amazing. Thanks everybody for joining us on Canadian Sober A. We'll see you next week with another amazing, amazing guest. See you then. Bye.